Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is session number 7. It's a masterclass beyond the browser, reimaging, reimagining net banking, reimagining net banking for the connected consumer. All right, please put your hands together for Mr. Anand Lakshmanan, VP of Product Razorpay. May I please invite him on stage? Over to you. It's a clicker.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Anand Lakshmanan, Vice President of Product at Razorpay. I take care of everything payments product at Razorpay. I'm here to talk about something super exciting. It is something that all of us have probably struggled with. How many of you use net banking? And how many of you really don't like the experience? It's probably all of us in the room. It's probably the technology is now a couple of decades old, and we have done a great job as an industry to leapfrog in UPI, in cards, in multiple places. And this is one place where we have been due for reimagining how the experience will look. I'm here with Aditi from NBBL, and together we will walk you through what's the vision for how a new net banking experience should look like. Hopefully, this is exciting and this changes our view for a lot of you on how net banking will look like going in the future. Looks like we have some technical issues already. Anyways, as the slides come up, it's nothing that we don't know in terms of what the net banking landscape is. By the way, net banking still gets a lot of transactions. Contrary to all of us, how we think, right? We think that the world is dominated by UPI and by credit cards, but there are several. Does it work now? Okay, great. 30 crore monthly transactions still happen on net banking. That's not a small number. 6 lakh crores of money flows through net banking. And look at the primary use case, right? A primary use case is large volume transactions. All of them are still happening through net banking. So while the experience is far from ideal, the transactions have continued to always happen. So that's the truth in net banking. Why does it matter? Why is it still so relevant? For most of you sitting here, you're very technologically savvy. You've used and you adopt to technology curves first. But for a lot of the country, they still look for trust and security. You want to see that bank logo, the SBI Bank, the HDFC Bank, the ICICI Bank. You want to see that logo and say, I'm actually making a transaction through that. The trust and reliability still goes a very, very long way. And the other sort of piece is scale and coverage, right? Because net banking exists. However small the bank be, you still have coverage and scale on that bank. And the primary one, like I talked about, the large ticket sizes. Because obviously all of us know that there is a restriction. If you want to transfer 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, I know certain merchant category codes, you can still do it on UPI, but a lot of merchant category codes have a restriction of 1 lakh, continue to have that. So if you want to make large ticket sizes, net banking remains your only option, assuming that you're not using cards, and cards come with attract a significant fee, and there obviously there are a lot of merchants and other agencies who don't accept cards beyond a certain level. So that's why net banking continues to be popular. And honestly, for the price that we pay for net banking, the charges and the amount of money you transfer, it's still a very, very cost-effective method. So that's why net banking, contrary to what we think, continues to be an extremely important form of payment that exists in the country today. But, so that being said, how does it work today? I think most of us are familiar with this. The customer calls goes to the merchant page. The merchant page calls up a payment aggregator like Razorpay. Then Razorpay works with the bank, and that's set up, and then eventually the banks then authenticates back to the customer. So this is sort of the flow that happens today, but the flow is broken at multiple different places, and that's where the problems of net banking sort of starts. It's sort of a tedious. How many of us have gone through this, right? The wrong password, and then you get an OTP, and then you don't get the OTP because you're in a poor network zone, or the OTP times out. These are things that we continue to see from a net banking standpoint. This is not the end of the problems. There's a lot more problems. Second one is that multiple entries, right? It's just not one password. Sometimes it's two passwords, then there's a secure code, then there's an OTP. The number of steps is like about 10 steps or so before you get to eventually transacting, and that's in this world, in this day and age, when you're literally doing single click and in some cases zero click on your, for example, on my Samsung phone, right? I mean, I just use my fingerprint and just do tap and pay, and you're done. So that's the speed at which technology has moved, and for you to take 10 steps to complete a transaction at this day and age obviously looks archaic. More examples, CAPTCHA code. How many of you, like, it's very annoying. You need to figure it out, and then you can't read it well, and then you don't know whether that is an I or a L or a 1, and then you're like struggling with that. What is it now? And then you do it, and then it's wrong. Now you get a new CAPTCHA code. So obviously, like, I think all of you have seen, probably aware of how we're moving forward in card transactions. Biometric authentication is going to become real very, very soon. And Razorpay also is launching something very exciting on those lines this week. The last one, this is my personal pet peeve, which is that it is not built for mobile. Like, how much of pinch and zoom do I need to do to get to the customer ID code before I can enter it? And it's just not kosher. So it's not one problem, right? The entire journey is riddled with problems. It was amazing at some point when you didn't have access to digital payments, and this was the only option, and then you used a desktop. But as technology has evolved, all of these problems have compounded and made net banking extremely hard to use. But in spite of all of this, 6 lakh crores continue to flow through net banking. So imagine if you had a better experience, how net banking would sort of fare, right? So that's the opportunity size in front of us. This is something that many of us as consumers don't see, but the integration at the back end is a complete nightmare, which means that every PA needs to integrate with every bank, and then the merchants need to sort of integrate with the PA. And nothing is standardized, right? So as a payment aggregator, I have to work with, how many banks are there? Like 100 plus banks, right? And most of us payment aggregators, we are only able to support the top 20 banks. Then what do you do for the rest of the banks? And every payment aggregator now has to work with every bank. So it's an M cross N problem, right? How many ever payment aggregators are there across the number of banks? Each of them is doing their own integration. Nothing is standardized. Each of them is doing their own settlement cycles. Each of them are doing their own dispute resolution. The complexity of this is tremendous. So now when a merchant comes to us, or a business comes to us and says, I want net banking enabled, the business thinks that it's going to happen automatically. But for us to go and work with all of these banks for a particular merchant, it takes an enormous amount of time. And the ecosystem is completely burdened by the fact that every time a merchant onboards, we need to go through all of these pieces. So that is a huge systemic problem in terms of complexity that exists in terms of integration. That's another big challenge. I think it talked about this. It's the slow enablement, right? It is that every time we need to enable a bank, it takes weeks and months. So a lot of merchants are like, generally assume that it's going to happen tomorrow, but it doesn't. It just takes a significant amount of time. That's why we are here. Aditi and I are here to talk about the future of net banking and what we think the vision of net banking is going to be. So before we get there, I wanted to actually look like how an ideal net banking flow should look. And at this point, if we can play the video. It was a little bit of a technical glitch, so give us a few seconds. I think they need to swap out and play from somewhere else. Hopefully we are able to get through that piece. Okay, the video is not flowing, so let me just go to the screens first then. Yeah, unfortunately, since I'm not able to play the video, I'm going to sort of walk you through it. Bear with me for a little bit. Imagine this journey. This journey you're sort of familiar with. How many of you like this is something what inside Razorpay we call as a standard checkout. When you say click to pay, this is where basically it goes to. And there is, you see all of these options. And then when you hit net banking, imagine if you're able to get to a screen which says pay with HDFC mobile banking app. All of us have HDFC mobile banking app, so whatever banking app that you're using, right? Most of us have that already installed. And from there, it goes into basically the app, and then it asks for an MPIN. Everyone has an MPIN set up. I think there's one more step after this. Once you enter an MPIN, so let me, oops. I think am I going back? Sorry, 1 second. So again, just the flow here is that you start from the checkout page. All you have done is just hit the MPIN once. That's all you've done so far. And once you've hit the MPIN, you basically get a list of accounts that you can choose from. And then you enter your authorization PIN and the transaction is done. So that's what the net banking flow should become. Literally, all you need to remember is one MPIN, and you should be pretty much done after that. So this is the vision that we are driving towards. Let's also look at the desktop flow. So this is a desktop, so similar sort of checkout flow here. Now here's an interesting option. We have a pay via QR or pay via HDFC website. Now HDFC website will still take you back to the old browser-based flow. So obviously you want to pay through QR. And if you pay through QR, all of us are familiar with how to do this, right? If you've used UPI on your desktop, this is the exact experience. So it's the exact experience. You scan the QR, and once you scan the QR, you go through the mobile flow. So whether you're on a desktop or whether you are on a mobile phone, you should be able to complete the flow exactly the same way. I'll go back to the, unfortunately, the video did not work, so we're back here. Yeah, the customer doesn't have the mobile app. There is obviously a push to get them to install the mobile app. Otherwise, you're back to the website. I think this hopefully over time increases adoption of the mobile app also. Yeah. I think it's kind of stuck here. We can just move to the next slide, yeah. So we saw the desktop as well. Oh, okay, great. So obviously the value proposition for the customer is we solve the problems, it solves most of the problems. The most important thing being you don't need to remember your customer ID. My customer ID is the one that gets me. You got it stored somewhere, you don't remember what the customer ID is, then you don't know what the password is, then you have to go through a CAPTCHA. It takes out all of that from the ecosystem. You don't need to remember any of that. All you need to remember is just one PIN. And this is not very different from UPI because there also you remember PIN. It's exactly the same thing. You just need to remember the one PIN. Merchants win also because there's a huge drop-off that happens in net banking today. The success rates of net banking are obviously not as high as UPI. So merchants are today losing transactions, and that sort of goes away with this. The banks and the PAs also win because in the vision that we are imagining, you remember the complexity I told you that multiple banks need to integrate with multiple PAs? We're imagining a world where you don't have to do that. There is sort of a central body, and in the case of UPI, there is a central body, NPCI sort of plays the role of arbitrating between and creates the sort of rails for everyone to pass the information through. Imagine a world similar to that, where you have a central body and the banks just need to connect to that one central body and all the PAs need to connect to the central body. Now everything gets standardized. You have the same set of protocols for the payment, you have the same set of protocols for the settlements, for dispute resolution, and you don't need to integrate with one bank with one bank at a time. You can integrate through one central body, and that sort of allows you to integrate with everyone. All of this is huge innovation in this space, and we believe this will dramatically alter the landscape with which net banking will be sort of used in the ecosystem. And with this, if you're able to do 6 lakh crores, there's no reason that why it can't be much larger than that over the next several years. Uh, by the way, there is a role for AI, right? I think there is a lot of fraud and fraud detection that we could use. There's some personalization also that you could use. You could pre-select the bank that you normally use. You could pre-select the accounts that you could normally use. And it's tomorrow you can envision a world. I don't know how many of you have seen it. OpenAI now has an agentic commerce protocol. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's the most exciting sort of announcement in the last week. And they allow for commerce to be enabled on ChatGPT. So I can imagine a world where you should be able to make a net banking transaction through your favorite sort of AI assistant. That should now be possible because all you need is an MPIN, and if you just integrate that into the journey, that should also dramatically alter the landscape. With that, I would like to invite Aditi from NBBL to talk about how settlements would look like in this new world.
Thanks, Anand, for setting up the exact visionary space we would all like to be. While being at NPCI and working with so many ecosystem participants, one thing which comes very clearly out to us is that how do we reimagine what's happening next? How do we stay ahead and above of the curve? So one of the things which we've been fascinated always, whether when UPI was being created or when new networks are being talked about or new architectures and products, is that how do we ensure that settlements are even faster than what they are today? As customers, we don't get to know. Because as soon as you make a payment at an Amazon, your account as a customer is debited. And for you, the product is to be delivered in the stipulated period of time. But at the back end, that money from your bank account to Amazon and from there in between the multiple stakeholders who are there, like a payment aggregator, like a TSP, that entire hop still takes a lot of time. So what we looked at is that, is there a world where we can have settlements rather than T+1, which comes like from transaction day to the next day or as per the contracts, into something which is T+now. Do the transaction now, and in real time from one account, money is debited and is received by the seller. Sorry. So India today has almost 50% of share in the global real-time impact payments. We continue to have UPI, we continue to have IMPS. We also have settlements which are happening today in batch-wise approach. So essentially, every time any settlement has to happen between two of the banks, which is the interbank settlements, you would see that with the RTGS rails, it takes 2 to 3 hours at least for this to be shifting from one account to another, or one bank to another. If you look at the global scenario, out of the 100%, 50% obviously we proudly hold. If we move forward, the next competitor or the next one which is done by the virtue of being one of the leading technological country has been Brazil, which has worked a lot with PIX, and they have done a fantastic job in ensuring that money movement is the easiest one to do. Followed by Thailand, China, and South Korea, and there are others as well. In US as well, you would see in the B2B space, US Feds have been doing a lot of work, but yet they are not up to the curve is what I would like to say. Even with this, all of this, you still would see that the merchant finally gets the money in T+1 or T+8, or depending upon the contracts they have with different aggregators or middle stakeholders. In that case, you would see on the right side as we're talking about, what is the current settlement process? Today, when the transaction is completed, bank shares the file, it goes to a PA through an issuing bank, and after that, the PA does the payout. Is it a possibility that we can even put an efficiency in this entire system? Can we make these rails even faster than what they are today? Can we ensure that the non-standardization, the merchant payment delays, the T+5, or the other ODR issues be sorted out? So reimagining how account-to-account transfer happens. Transaction is completed at the back end. It goes to customer's account. Bank's account is debited. A settlement is initiated by the sponsor bank of the PA, which goes directly into the Bene and RTGS account, and from there it goes to the merchant account. This entire process can actually be completed in split seconds. And that is where we are reimagining how the settlement can actually work. This vision may come true very soon, but till then, we can at least think of that how our merchants will be benefited, how our customers will be benefited, and how an ODR actually it can become better. Can we leverage RTGS system better? Can we standardize the processes? Can we accelerate settlements to PAs themselves because they can have better cash flows? And lastly, can we get away with bad settlements and actually move into frictionless real-time rails? So that's the vision we are putting forward and we are putting together. Hopefully, we will make the ecosystem more efficient as we move forward in our product innovations. That's all from our side. Thank you so much for patience and hearing us. Anand, if you want to come back. We have some time for questions and answers. Anand, if you want to join in, please.
I think we have a few minutes if you have any questions. Yes, yes, please. So what we are saying, I think the question for those of you who couldn't hear is that we are sort of talking about a central body here. Is there a role for the government to play from government side? I think this is better answered by Aditi, but I'll also give my take on it. See, there needs to be a central body, right? And a central body needs to work with banks to be able to integrate with all of the banks. The moment that happens, and all of us know banking is a fairly regulated space. So there has to be some sort of a regulatory role that needs to play in. Whether it's government or not is very, it can be, but it has to be regulated. And because you're working with the banks, the settlement processes have to be with the banks, etc. So you should expect that there is some sort of regulatory bodies that will be involved around it. Aditi, if you want to add anything else.
I would just say that, yes, a regulator would play a big role into this. And a regulator could be from the government agencies or it could be a self-appointed SRO kind of, but a middle party which is absolutely free of any bias between the merchants, customers, and banks. And yes, government has a big role to play because that middle party has to be answerable to someone. And that can only be a regulation where they can be answered. So yes, government definitely has a big play to say here. But I would say that equivalent play comes from someone like RBI, who's a regulator, or another regulator like RBI, SEBI, we have many, which can or who can define the rules of the game. So that is definitely required.
Yeah.
Assuming that will be a SDK within the Razorpay.
Yeah, so that's the beauty of this. You actually don't have to do much. So what we do today, the experience that you see is what we call as a standard checkout experience. This standard checkout experience is available both on apps and on your regular browser also. If you look at the larger players, you take the Blinkits of the world, you take the Mintras and Amazons of the world, then they usually have their own app. So when they integrate, the way the backend integrates is what we call as a server-to-server integration with many of them, where Razorpay will provide APIs and the front end or the user experience is usually controlled by the app. But in the web browser scenario, for the smaller brands, D2C brands, etc., the web page actually is Razorpay's page. So there is no SDK integration needed. So this would be Razorpay standard checkout page. Now today, there is still also a net banking, right? When you hit net banking today, then it goes to, in the case of HDFC, it'll go to netbanking.hdfc.com. Instead of that, we would deep link it into HDFC's mobile app. So it's extremely seamless because all I need to do is just change the link. Instead of pointing to netbanking.hdfc.com, I would be deep linking to HDFC app. I should be able to detect, and that's very easy today. I can detect whether HDFC's app exists on your phone. And if it exists on your phone, I can directly have the app open up, You enter the MPIN, and who knows, tomorrow there could be biometric also, where you may not need MPIN. I'm just projecting a world into tomorrow, given my excitement around biometric on cards. So maybe it's just one finger or basically a facial recognition, and then you're done. You may just need to authorize at that point of time. So it could be as seamless as that. The entire integration experience goes away or becomes simpler. Sorry, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, so my question was specific to WhatsApp payments because Razorpay in India is like taking care of the WhatsApp payments. So will it be enabled there as well?
In WhatsApp for net banking. So the way WhatsApp payments is enabled by Razorpay today is that we open up a native checkout experience inside WhatsApp. And there also, when you want to use net banking, it's just a deep link away. So everywhere we expose our checkout, it's all a deep link away. Today we are just opening a URL, tomorrow we are just providing a deep link. So our work is almost next to nothing here if this is how the ecosystem will work. So somebody else had a question, sorry.
Yeah, hi, this is Rupali here. That was a very nice presentation from Razorpay. You spoke about
also
how you,
NBBL.
and NBBL, of course. You spoke about, how you're looking at making the whole login process more seamless. But my question is this, that, with the rise in AI, right, and fraud, what are the kind of steps that you're taking to ensure that, fraud kind of issues don't occur through, during logins, for example, facial authentication or biometrics, etc.?
See, this is a great question. By the way, this is something that you're already doing, by the way, right? In the sense that all of this happens through a passkey mechanism. Today, you can open your Gmail also through biometric authentication. So the whole point of the biometric authentication is that it's device authenticated. There are multiple checks. Your facial recognition is stored within your device. It is registered to your device. You need to be able to spoof that. And that's something that we've gotten to a level of security where we are comfortable opening most of the other apps. So it's not like payments is the first use case for biometrics. Biometrics have now stabilized to a point where generally it's being used across for multiple different applications. The way biometrics work today is exactly that. It's not like we're reinventing the biometric for payments. We are just leveraging whatever biometrics that exists on your phone as device authentication through passkey mechanism, which is one of the most secure forms of authentication. And we're just leveraging that. We are not reinventing the authentication phase.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are we out of time? Oh, maybe one more question, yeah? Sorry, I couldn't hear as well.
You introduced the QR code for the net banking, right?
Yes.
So it is a great achievement. I want to ask something like a refund and chargeback. Who is handling that thing?
See, the refund and chargeback will be handled exactly the same way it happens today. Just because the authentication and the mechanism for authentication changes, etc. See, at the end of the day, the payment aggregator sits at the middle of all of this. This has to be orchestrated by the PA. So in this case, if it was a Razorpay transaction, Razorpay needs to take care of all of this.
Okay. So backendly, you are calling the banks. So
Nothing
right now,
changes. Nothing changes, right? The way payments work today is payment aggregator calls what's an acquiring bank,
yeah.
and the acquiring bank then works through some sort of a network. In the case of cards, it is your Visa, Master, etc., or RuPay. In the case of net banking, it will be through NBBL. And then through this is now a Natch. And then eventually the same mechanism will follow. We are not changing any of the backend rails. We're just making the user experience easier.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think we are out of time here, but thank you so much for the questions, and we really enjoyed bringing this here. Thank you.